In today's episode, we are going to learn about Mojo's data and Mojo's types. Think of Mojo's data and types as the foundational bricks. Everything else we are going to build in this series, it sits on top of them. These are the most important concept you are going to learn. Every program you are going to ever write, underneath all of them is just moving the data around. And here's the kind of the data you will find in real application. A number, some text, a couple of lists, nothing exotic. But what Mojo does with each one behind the scenes, that's where it earns its speed. By default, when you pass the data around, the receiver gets a logical copy, not a secret reference back to your original data. Now that is called value semantics. And it matters more than it sounds. Behavior stays predictable. No function can secretly reach back and mangle your data. And that's the predictability is what keeps the big program sane. So what is a type? It is the label that tells the compiler how to store a value and which operation even makes sense on this kind of data. And here is a payoff. When the compiler knows the exact type ahead of the time, it doesn't have to check at runtime. It just lays the data out and generates fast code. A lot of people believe that's the reason Python is slow, because Python skips type declaration and figures it out as it runs it. It is flexible, but it costs performance. Now that's where Mojo gives you best of both worlds. It can infer the type from our value, or you can spell it out when you want complete control. Now let's take 2 more minutes to understand another important concept, how memory works. It feels like a tangent, but it's going to pay you off enormously once you care about the speed. Now picture a hierarchy. Tiny caches right next to the core are blazing fast, and your main memory is comparatively glacial. And every time you have to haul data up from the RAM, that costly trip is called the cache miss. Inside a running program, memory splits 2 ways. The stack is ordered. Every value has a known place, so access is nearly instant. But sizes must be known up front. Now the heap value, which is for the values that grows, it can be reached through a pointer, and that's what the cost is. So here is the rule that falls right after that. Keep small values on the stack and reach for the heap only when you truly must. Now let's go back to the Mojo. First, variables. The first rule to remember is simple. In Mojo, every variable is mutable. And you have got 2 ways to make one. Explicitly with the var keyword. So if you say var x equals to 1, that's you are defining it explicitly, or implicitly, just by assigning a name inside a function. Both are mutable. The difference between these 2 variables is a scope. A var lives only inside its indented block. The bare name is visible across the whole function, but for clarity, I will lean on var throughout. Mojo is also a strongly typed language. A variable gets its type the moment it is born, and the type never changes. Try to put text into an integer and the compiler is going to stop you. You can annotate the type yourself with a colon. So for example, here temperature is a float 64. So the 99 quietly becomes the 99.0. Even if you have typed it as an integer. Mojo only does conversions that are safe and lossless. And here is a beautiful detail. Mojo's built-in val types aren't secretly baked into the compiler. They are defined in the library using the same struct feature you will use yourself. We are going to learn about this concept in later chapter. Let's see some of these types in action. Here, integer is a signed integer matching your machine's word size, usually 64 bits. You can reach out for plain integer as your default and only pick a specific width when you have a reason. Boolean is simply true or false. And for decimals, you want a floating type, which is float 64, is the everyday choice, with a smaller, faster option when you need them. Data type text lives in a string and is a built-in data type now. So unlike older Mojo versions, you don't need to import anything here. It's heap allocated. It grows and you can index and slice it with the familiar Python style syntax. Now when you want an ordered growable collection of one type, you can use list. This is a Mojo's workhorse collection. The part in square brackets says exactly what's inside. There's a parameter known as a compile time. Now, when you got a small fixed bundle of values that are different types, you can use a tuple list for many of the same things, tuple for a few related different things. Before we wrap, let's meet the type that hints at the Mojo's real ambition, SIMD, single instruction, multiple data. Now, modern CPUs have wide registers that apply one operation to a whole vector of numbers at once, instead of looping. So watch, here we multiply 4 values in a single instruction. That's the rocket fuel for the AI math. And that's the beauty of using why you want to use Mojo language, just to do for this kind of AI mathematics. And look closely at the syntax because it teaches the big idea. Square brackets are holding the parameters here, known as the compile time. Parentheses hold the arguments, that the runtime values, and the split is exactly what lets Mojo generate such fast code. You're going to understand this concept once you start writing more and more Mojo code. Now, with types in hand, operators are the easy part. You can use any of the operator you like: add, subtract, multiply, floor divide, power, remainder. They all are feel instantly familiar. And comparison hand you back a Boolean. One elegant secret I want to share. A plus B is really a call to an add method on A's data type, which means later your own types can use plus 2. So look at what we have got here. You know how Mojo stores the data type. You know the stack versus heap. You know mutable strongly typed variables, and you have met the core data types all the way down to SIMD. In the next lesson, we are going to put it all together, all this data to work with loops and decisions. See you there.